Welcome to the 408th episode of CppCast, the first podcast for C++ developers by C++ developers. I am your host, Jason Turner. Every fourth episode of C++ Weekly will be a crossover episode of CppCast. You can choose to watch the podcast on YouTube or listen in your favorite service. I am joined by my co-host, Mathieu Robert. How are you doing this week, Mathieu?
I'm having a week because I'm forced to work on Mac, and I hate this so much so far. I'm hoping it's gonna get better as I get into it, but I'm not gonna lie. For a Mac listener, how do you manage? I'm just too much of a Windows guy at this point after so many years in game development. I'm just this I can barely right click. What is going on?
It
See,
has
I've
a
always
Unix
been...
command line. It has a Unix command. It's fine. I use Macs at home, but for work I use a Windows machine because it's required. I would love to work on Macs actually.
The Linux part are easy because that's the one I just have like memory about. But the minute I try to do graphic stuff, I'm like,
Agreed.
go away.
So I've been a Linux user since 1990. Good gracious. Since about 1994, mostly. I've had some Linux box around. And so very familiar with Linux command line tools. And then I wanted to use a Mac. I bought a Mac. I was super excited about it. I'm like, yes, an actual Unix workstation. This is going to be amazing. And then I realized that it's all the BSD versions of the tools instead of the GNU versions of the tools. And everything was completely different. And I was very annoyed.
I actually worked with BSD back in the day because the nerd that was my roommate in tech school was a big BSD guy. So I'm not too afraid of BSD, but just the whole, I don't know. People tell me it's Mac is for people who don't have that thinks UX is too hard on Windows. I'm like, I don't get it. I just maybe I'm the boomer who's like, how does that work?
You are, yes, you're becoming a boomer, Mathieu. It's true.
That's terrible news. That's terrible news.
My wife is a graphical designer, so we have Macs at home. It's not. Well, I don't hate them, but seriously, I don't hate them.
All
I
right,
gotta be fair, I'm looking at the new MacBook Neo, and I'm wondering if that might be my new travel laptop because
It looks like a good deal.
Yeah.
I've been considering getting a Mac Mini and traveling with that because you have screens everywhere. You just have to. They're tiny. You can drop them in your luggage. And somebody my size, I can't work on a laptop on the plane or anything, right? The seats are too small for me to do that. So I might as well bring a more powerful computer. But it's an idea I'm toying with.
Okay, let's go ahead and introduce our guest for this episode, since he has already introduced himself. This week, we are joined by Tom Tesch. Tom is currently a senior lecturer for the Bachelor of Digital Arts and Entertainment at Houst. I don't know how to pronounce that. I just realized.
West.
Okay, yeah. University of Applied Sciences, where he is on a mission to inspire the next generation of game developers. His expertise revolves around teaching C++ algorithms and the core principles of computer science to aspiring game creators. He combines his broad experience with hardware and software engineering with his love for retro gaming, not only guiding aspiring developers through the intricacies of coding, but also immersing them in the timeless charm of vintage gaming. Thanks for joining us today, Tom.
Yo, glad you're having me. I'm honored to be invited. I was just telling the story earlier. Maybe I should tell it now, but I blame Jason for part of my C++ journey. I've always been interested in retro computers, though in my day those computers were just called computers because yes, I'm that old. And I saw this weird guy running C++ 17 on a Commodore 64 and proving it could make efficient code. I thought, wow, that seems like an interesting conference. I should go there. And so that's the first time I came to CppCon. I had a little bit of budget. We don't have a lot of it in public education, but it was my turn to go to GDC. And I said, I'd rather not go to GDC. Can I apply this budget to go to CppCon instead? Because I teach programming, it's probably more relevant. So it's really stoked my interest further into C++. So thank you, Jason.
No problem. What was your first year then at CppCon?
I was thinking about it earlier. I gave a talk last year and the year before that. Then the year before that didn't come. So I think 23 was the first time. Okay. I saw your talk quite a bit after it was released. It just showed up on my YouTube on my YouTube feed because it knows you're interested in old stuff, right? And old computers
Right.
and running modern C++
Yeah,
on a Commodore 64, that seems fine.
I was there that year, and I think it's maybe one of the talk that showed Godbolt to the rest of the world. I remember
Yeah.
this is the first time I heard about it.
That might also be my first time I heard about Godbolt.
And that's how people meet this guy. Like, hey, why are you named Godbolt? Like the website? And he's like, yeah, yeah, like the website. Yes.
I will not so humbly take credit for that. Yes, I did introduce the world to Compiler Explorer, the conference world to Compiler Explorer. I gave a talk at C++ Now the year previous to that, and I had a bunch of like, look, these different constructs compile to these different types of assembly, static, slide, and every single person in the room said, how did you get the assembly for those functions? And I'm like, oh, it's just this website that exists, right? But yeah, I was I'll take credit for putting it on stage, but I will also fully give Matt credit for completely changing the way that all of us work, basically, at this point, right?
For education, it's just such a game changer. I love how you can lay out code neatly. I'll take a picture of it to put in my slides and put a Godbolt link in the comments so my students can play around with it, copy and paste. Also, if I have to fix code, which happens, I cannot count the number of times that I have a bunch of code and I took a picture of it and put it in my slides, and then I don't find the source anymore and I have to type it over like some medieval peasant.
Yeah. Did
So
we
that
mention
doesn't
it in the
happen
last?
anymore.
Did we mention Godbolt in the last episode? I was starting to make a bingo card, and it's just going to be Godbolt in it for now. But I
I
guess
don't
it does come up a lot.
think we mentioned him
I
or the website.
For the listener,
Year.
it will already be online when it comes. But where we are recording it, it's actually not published yet. It's going to be next week, I think, if I recall the schedule, or maybe even this week. That the previous one will be public. You give me the
And
date.
7 days from now is when the
Yes,
next
exactly.
episode will air
So yes,
in
we're
this
recording this
timeline.
on we're recording this on the 11th of May. But by the magic of editing and publishing, you will not notice this, dear listener. Excuse me, you might be hearing your cat being very upset because he's never been fed.
Never been
I'm
fed.
sorry about
I
that.
just I did get a comment from a listener from a few months ago, or the first episode you were on, I believe, Mathieu, and they said that they were driving and kept thinking they were hearing a cat and couldn't figure out where the sounds were coming from.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And it was the
Actually, if you give me 2 minutes, I'll handle him so he stops. Because the rest of the podcast is going to be just him meowing for an hour. If not, yes, I'm coming. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
For those who have been listening to CppCast for a very long time, you might remember Clickgate, which happened for like the first maybe 2 months that I was co-hosting with Rob, that I would sit here and fidget with a pen, and I didn't realize it was ending up in the audio, and we would get comments from people that were complaining about the clicking sound, and it took a while to realize it was my fidgeting that was the problem. And now for people who are watching the video, I fidget with something that's rubber, and it won't make noises.
Never.
See, that's how you become an experienced podcaster. I'm new to this, so you get cat sound. I don't know what else is gonna come up later. We'll figure it out.
It'll be fine. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
All right, should we jump into the news for a moment here? Well, news, whatever. Topics to talk about. These things might be old by the time this episode airs, but one of the things that I personally missed about not co-hosting CppCast, I missed while not co-hosting CppCast, was that it kind of forced me to keep up on the news, and so I just kind of want to force everyone else to keep up on the news. And so the first thing that I have here, I don't know if there's a whole lot to talk about. It's just a link to the GitHub repository for SourceTrail. And when I saw that this was still being actively maintained from a fork, Peter Most, I guess, Peter Most has been maintaining this fork since forever and making releases. And SourceTrail was like an early episode that Rob and I did. So, early in my brain, I guess. It's nice to me that this project is still being maintained 8 years later by someone. It's just it's a GUI for navigating source code, for navigating C++. and Java, actually.
I didn't know it, and I'm already a fan. To navigate through students' source code, this could be a great help because they
Could be,
might sometimes have the tendency to overcomplicate things. It's nice. I wish this existed 10 years ago.
well, it did exist 10 years ago. You just didn't know about it. And
I
it was a
didn't know
commercial
about
product
it.
back then.
Yeah.
I wonder how
Well-
much faster it is than using an IDE, because I don't remember if I mentioned that in the last episode. Maybe not, because I think we recorded it before. But I've worked with Unreal Engine recently, and working with one of those huge projects on MSVC means that every time you hit F12 to go to location, you just watch a loading screen for like 10 seconds, and then
Right.
you hope that it actually goes somewhere. And then you you go back to your old habit of just doing a search by name, because it's much faster than trying to do the symbol lookup. I think IntelliSense just gives up after a certain size. It's just not as fast. I know there are plugins. I don't want to make any publicity to the paid one unless they give me money, but I know there are options that might make that faster. So I'm hoping that maybe Sourcewell can do that. But again, maybe at the scale of your student project, it doesn't matter, because hopefully
No.
they're not turning out like
No, not Unreal side. I hope so. It hasn't
a
happened.
million lines of code. Enjoy.
It hasn't happened yet, but nothing surprises me. I will never say this will never happen. You never know with students. Every time you think, oh, this is it, I've seen everything, and then the year after it will be topped by something. So no, I'm not.
Yeah, actually, I mean, maybe it's more like the kind of thing that would give you great material for a lightning talk. But like, are you allowed to keep like a Hall of Fame of the most like insane or cursed stuff they turn out, or is that like technically like maybe a deontological issue or?
I have a repository, and every year I threaten, if anybody does this again, I'm gonna make a wall of fame, put the code there and your picture, right? I've been threatening to do that for 9 years, and I've never done it because I feel this is how I might end up in HR and have a discussion with the dean whether this is truly appropriate. Though I will shame them once they're alumni and tell them, you remember that terrible code you once wrote. And they will be genuinely annoyed by this.
And maybe if you anonymize it, because they know who made it, but nobody else does. So I guess
Yeah,
maybe that works.
I have a collection of really awful code, and there's no name with it. So I couldn't. It's actually a good idea for a lightning talk.
I think it's an amazing idea.
It would be hilarious. Yeah, there's certainly things in there. I was just
Yeah.
thinking when you were saying, in Visual Studio when you press F12, one of the things I discovered last CppCon, I was studying some source code, and given my size, it's hard for me to operate a laptop on a plane. And the size, it's not me, it's the planes who are tiny. I printed out some code to look at, and I realized by studying the code on paper, by the time I landed, I understood the structure of the program way better. Because you can't just, go to the definition, right? You have to know, this is in this file, and this, and after a while, of course, your brain captures this information, and you understand the code better. And I told myself, well, I will not use go to definition again, and that held up for the entire conference. And afterwards, I was back to pressing F12 like crazy. But I'm really convinced that your brain is lazy, and you don't want to go through all the pages again by hand, and you just remember, that's in that file and that's in that file. So I think if I ever have to work on a project, I mean professionally, not like now, but as a teacher, I would certainly print it out and try to study the code like that. I know it sounds weird. I'm not gonna die on this.
I accept this. When I was younger and worked at a regular company and had free access to laser printers, I would take whatever I wanted to study, be it source code or the technical docs for a piece of hardware that I was working with or something like that, and I would print it 4 up double-sided to reduce the amount of pages that I was actually using. And back then I could read 4 up on a standard piece of paper. I'm not sure if it would be wise today. I'd probably be doing this with my bifocals, right? But yeah, I don't know what the limits are here. Like how long was that project that you printed out?
It was the C+ Game Boy emulator.
Right.
So not that I didn't print out the unit tests because those were immense, but quite a bit of code. I don't know, must have been like 40 or 50 pages or something. And I printed them back and front. It worked really well. And yeah, sometimes every separate file was printed separately. It was reasonable. People don't. Well, the university doesn't complain when we print stuff because our department is one of those in the university that prints the least.
Okay.
Other departments who do languages and other stuff print way more than us, so they
I'm
didn't complain
surprised we
about.
still print anything in this era. I would think everything will be like a tablet or a computer at this point.
That's exactly what happens, right? We don't. Exams are online, exercises are online. Some, I think the math teacher still likes to print out the students still make exams by hand, so he prints out his exams and he has a couple of hundred students, so that takes up some paper, but compared to the average, we're really good on this.
Yeah, I guess math makes sense because if you want student to format math correctly, you first have to teach them LaTeX, which might take the first semester just to get that going.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. It's the first semester, first year. They don't know anything yet. They're innocent, wide-eyed.
So you say you're teaching, right? So take us through it a bit. What kind of what kind of course do you like? Intro to C++, all of C++? You said it's also like games related. So what's the whole like?
Yeah, so I teach digital arts and entertainment. That's a bachelor degree. We have 6 majors. 2 of them are related to movies. One is 3D animation, the other is VFX. So some talk about these. I only teach in the major which we call game development, which is most related to programming for games, and also GSI, which is game sound integration, which is audio related, where I also teach C++. But I don't, and the GSI students I teach the first years, I like that group because audio is very specific. It's a very tiny group every year. The first 2 semesters, so the first year, I do not teach C++. The very basics are not taught by me. They're taught by an amazing colleague who is, let's be honest, more patient than me. Because the first we're a public university. There's no conditions to enter except that you have to have finished your secondary degree, right? So when you enter, some of them have never programmed. So it's not just a C++ course. It's a programming course, right? With C++ as a first language for some of them. But in the first semester, I teach algorithms, which, funnily enough, I used to do that with pseudocode. But then you realize as soon as you do something even slightly complicated, you have to introduce a syntaxes. So I switched to Python for that, which is like pseudocode that you can run for the simple things we do, right?
Right.
But it is, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's Bjarne that I heard in an interview once say a good programmer should know more than one language. So that's already a second one on their belt, and it's really for simple things like pseudocode. And then in the second semester, I teach something called computational system fundamentals, which is the basics. How does a computer work? How does a compiler work? How does software work? Right? The computer science basics. And then I teach a course called Programming 3 and 4, which in the second year. Starting in Programming 3, we start to do programming that's more unique for, let's say, unique for C++. We talk about RAII, we talk about related concepts like unique and other smart pointers. We talk about lambdas. And by the time the next semester, Programming 4, that's the last formal training we get in C++. They have to also write a little game. We assign them a game out of a list of 10 randomly, but they have to design their own little engine as well. So they get a very shitty on purpose SDL engine that's really terrible, right? And they have to fix it. And they have to use software development patterns, and it's a lot of fun. Well, for most of them. Some people really don't like it.
I guess it is closer to the reality to maybe give you like at least at some point you will have to encounter the fact that you have to work with an engine or an SDK that is clearly like a thing that the company would like to kill or refactor but never got the time to do.
Exactly. And the degree is also more It's often, well, in one of the other majors, they teach Unity and they get C sharp. It's the ND track. And if you say, oh, but we don't do C sharp, it's C++, everybody automatically, it's like a false dichotomy. Oh, then you do Unreal. No, we show them some Unreal in some of the courses, right? But it's not an Unreal course because maybe slightly controversial, but Unreal isn't really an example of great C++, especially for teaching. I'm glad somebody else is smiling. Some of the coding guidelines are in direct opposition to the core code guidelines. So of course it's a very useful engine, right? And it's good for making games, but it's not good for teaching good C++, I think.
I haven't read them through, but like I said, I had to work with Unreal recently, and I probably made a few curses on the internet after that because I had to use their array type and their map type, which do not have anything from the STL API at all. They're not drop-in replacements. They made a begin and an end at gunpoint because they wanted to do range 4. But if you try to use begin and end for anything else, like an algorithm, for example, it fails to compile because their iterators, for example, in debug, their iterators are not copyable, so no algorithm works. If you want to use iterators with them, what you do is you do dot data and dot data plus size because then you default back to pointers and that works. But they have custom iterators for basically do the same thing as Microsoft does with check iterators, right? Except theirs are just a minimum support so that you can do a range 4 and nothing else. It's absolutely cursed, and I always get some weirdo on Twitter. Hello, if you're a listener, and also one of the guy who argues with me on Twitter. You're wrong. Like there is no way you should have an API that is just refuses to engage with the rest of the STL.
Yeah,
I don't understand. Like, you would have to go out of your way to make an iterator that's not copyable. Why?
Well, if you make a custom type and you just don't make it copyable, they put a reference inside it because they capture a reference to the vector to verify to check you're not out of bound, which everybody teaches you, like, do not put references in structs, put pointers, because then you don't make them reassigned. They can be reassigned. But
yeah, I try to avoid that. That's the luxury of being a teacher. I don't teach anything with Unreal, so I can avoid it completely. And when students ask me questions about Unreal, I tell them I don't know. Go ask another colleague. And even when I know it, please go. Yeah, so stuff like that. As a you're teaching. I don't write a lot of code, so I try to all the code I write. I tried it to be as good as possible. Like, I want to have good habits, so I want to have. Since I'm in the luxury, I don't have to touch Unreal. I don't. I try to avoid weird stuff like that. So yeah, that's most of what I do. Teaching C++ has not been easy, and it's been large language models have actually made it much harder. The problem is the large language models are very good at solving first year problems. The typical easy problems that you make when you start, it's an if and a for loop and defining a variable, and there's the little framework that we have, which is a thin wrapper over SDL, and all these things the large language models are very good at. And so we can't help the students because they cheat on their homework, which by doing it with an LLM. And I think it's not only pure cheating. That at some point they believe they understand it, but they don't. Last year, the results for the programmers, it was a slaughter. A lot of people failed because they have to for the programming 2 course they can pick whatever game they want from the 16-bit era style games. Can be more recent like a Celeste or whatnot, and they have to replicate it. It's a project that they have to work on, but then there's an oral defense of this, and in the oral defense you will ask, oh, these 3 lines of code, what do they do? Oh, I don't know, I just got this out of Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it is they are using. And of course, you cannot give people great scores for this. Also, when I talked at GDC, I talked to other educators. Compared to the US, we fail more people. Being failed happens in Belgium a lot, specifically in games, because some people are 18 years old, they don't know what to do with their lives, but they like games. Oh, so there's this school in Kortrijk and they do awesome stuff with games. I'll do that. right? I always try to tell the parents, look, I like beer. That doesn't make me a brewer. Probably, probably.
That is perfect in Belgium for you to say that to the parents. Yes, I love it. It's
Um,
just
it's probably a necessary condition to be a good brewer to enjoy beer, right? Like, I don't think you can be a great game programmer if you don't enjoy games. But it's not enough. It's a necessary but not an enough condition. So failure rates are already high. People are often disappointed by this, and large language models have made it worse
Mm.
because people convince themselves they understand something and they don't. I was one of the first teachers to allow for programming 3. I have a lab exam, so they get an exercise. They bring their computers. They can use anything they want, except other humans. They can use Stack Overflow, CPP reference, large language model, anything they want. Of course, I make my exercises specifically, and I test this. Our failure rate is about 40%.
wow.
Of course, there's a retake. These are people who made it to the second year already. So this is after the slaughter of the people we stop at after the first year. People overestimate what they will be able to do with AI. One of the things I found that's really easy to stop them with is I don't provide a spec. I just provide them an executable, and
Mm.
the exam is make the same thing. And apparently this is very hard. You could of course describe what you want to a large language model, but that's also part of a skill. And they write terrible code. ChatGPT, for instance, still doesn't know how to get the size of a file, which you can do easily and uniformly. Since C++17, it will still do the seek thing. I, I recognize it immediately. It's been trained on so much old and shitty code that it will keep doing
Yeah.
that. And,
It's gonna do an
well,
FTL, like
yes,
CAPI
yeah.
FTL. Yeah, of course, because that's all the examples you find online.
Yeah. And they don't know enough to know to not tell it to tell it to not do that.
Well,
You know,
if they come to class and
use
they
C++.
pay attention, they will know.
Yeah. Well, right. That's I'm still kind of fascinated by making your students defend their project with an oral arguments. That is
Does that seem special to you?
I have
I'm
not heard
European,
anyone
so
else
no,
say
but
something like that.
That's the only way we can currently think, because you'll know very fast if somebody wrote it himself,
Oh yeah.
or
oh
even
yeah,
if they only partially wrote it, they got help. It's allowed, right? They're
Yeah.
allowed to, as long as you understand what you're doing, that you replace part of your typing with language models. I think that's what they're for, and like a kind of IntelliSense, but on steroids,
Hmm.
right? As long as it's that you do. But if you think it's gonna replace me and make my homework, that's not gonna work. And once you're used to it, you know in a couple of minutes, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about, or she doesn't
Wow.
know.
yeah. When I was in tech school and in engineering school, because I did both. I did a 2-year tech school at first, and then I did a 3 years engineering school after that in France. Sometimes, yeah, mostly group projects. They would ask you to do a defense. I guess sometimes just to check if one of the guys had done all the project and the other two had just put the
Of
name
course.
on it. Yeah, no, I mean, yes, I agree with you. You will immediately tell if someone has any vague idea of what it is. Back in my day, it was mostly like telling the guy that you try to do, like you try to do a solid two by telling yes, you can be in our group, and we all know that you've done nothing. Just just pretend you haven't. Just pretend you don't say anything. Do not ask anything. And I remember one time, just for an anecdote, we had this group of like 3 or 4 people, and then the fifth one comes up. The kind of type who partied a lot and did not do anything, and they're like, "Okay, you can add your name to our project and get the grade with us. Just shut up. Do not say a word during the thing." And of course, he shows up hangover from the day before because engineering school in France are mostly about parties. And the teacher goes, "Oh, so you didn't have too much problems with the makefile, saying that it was a big project and we only had a short introduction." And he just like completely like still probably still hungover, just look at the teacher like, "What's a makefile?" Luckily, the teacher thought it was a joke because it was like, "There's no way no one knows what a makefile is, so obviously this is just a bit." And he just laughed with him and then continued with the question. And I think that's how he got away with it.
Oh, goodness gracious. So in my university, in my years when I started, you would write your project, right? And then you would have to bring it in on a floppy disk, and put it into the computer and run it for the teaching assistant or whatever, the professor wasn't generally the one who would do this. And then, if there was any questions, like you had to know how your project was supposed to operate, if nothing else, right? But by the time I was graduating, all of those first level classes had been moved to autograders. So you would upload the source code and it had to be in a uniform language now at this point, right? And then it would run the thing. When I was an undergrad, officially they didn't teach programming to computer science students. It was up to you. You could decide Java, C, C++, whatever you wanted to do at the time. And then they made it all uniform on Java, and then I think Python later, because of this autograder to like reduce the burden on the people doing the grading. But no, I had not heard anyone in modern day, I guess, if you will, say that you had to do an oral defense of your project, and I think it sounds like an outstanding idea.
It's the only solution I see. The other solution I've heard, I think it was from Amir in Toronto, who told me they have an old school computer class, with fixed desks and a limited set of software installed and a firewall. The websites can only reach this and this, probably CPP reference and but that wouldn't fly because no budget. I wouldn't. I mean, the laptops the students buy them themselves, right? Having the university here buy and maintain computers also, we run out of space. We have like 1,700 students. Last year was the first year we didn't grow, so we were very happy with it. We were celebrating our 20th anniversary. Yeah, for the people listening, we had a joke about anniversaries and birthdays earlier. So yeah, 20 years we've been growing all the time. We've used up every room we have. They're all booked all the time, so we don't have space to add a computer class. We don't have budget to buy computers, so oral examination is the way to go. It's sometimes tough for the students because some of them are very introverted, or even partially on the spectrum. That happens a lot with programmers, which is fine. So it's extra tough for them. But when they apply for a job, it's also part of training, right? When they apply for a job, this will also help. The fact that some of our students are on the spectrum also doesn't help for the exercises, because over the years, our exercises have become very well defined. Because you can't count on for most of our students you can, but for some of our students you can't count on. But that's just common sense, right? You can get this from the context. They cannot. So you specify very precisely what you want. So if you cut and paste this into a large language model, out will pop a perfect solution. Right? So that also doesn't help. Yeah, oral's where it's at. That's
Yeah, I was pondering you were saying one of the final year projects is make a program that does the same thing as this binary that we just gave you. And in my experience, the LLMs are, getting at least better at reversing binaries, and then they can operate as plugins with binary reversing tools like Gydra. And yeah, there's probably a day coming very soon where the student might just be able to say, here's a binary, make a C++ program that does approximately the same thing.
Then still the last line of defense will be the oral exam, because that course programming 3 used to not have an oral defense, and next year it will. So they will make the lab exam, they'll have half a day, and then the days following that, each of them will have to come to me, we'll open their source code, and we'll discuss it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you open the source code of something made with Gydra without any more like understanding, the variable names are immediately going to tell you that this makes no sense, right? Because unless you have access to like the symbol table or the PDBs or whatnot, like Gydra is pretty good at turning assembly into C++ to some degree, but it screams like unreadable, like without any intent, if you don't have variable names and function names and whatnot.
I have a horror story that I need to tell, and Jason is gonna love this one. So I had a student and they had made an okay project, not great, but okay. And so we're going through the oral examination and they're not doing well. But I hate that the student has to leave and couldn't answer any question. So I keep asking questions, and the questions keep getting increasingly simple, right? And I run out of ideas, and I'm like, there on line 39, there's this keyword int. What does that mean? And they come back with, oh, that means the variable gets initialized. So yeah, then you know you haven't written this project yourself. You don't even know what an int is.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we all know.
Thank
We
you.
all
I
know it's
know
to fire
enough.
an
It's
intro.
very
Yeah.
rare that I have somebody who can answer not a single question, but it happens, and I have LLMs to thank for this.
How far did you manage to get without not knowing that what int does? Which, by the way, listeners, we all know this is to fire an interrupt at the CPU level. But
Of course.
uh, but like, how far do you get to not understand what an int is? Like, how do you even get all the way to you? Like,
And,
shouldn't they be failed like much
that's
earlier?
that was actually for an audio student,
Ah, okay.
and I teach those in the first year.
Ah, all right.
So there's no filter there yet. So yeah,
Mm.
I get the raw and unplugged version, and that's a tiny group. That's a tiny group. I enjoy teaching them because it's classes with like 18 students or something. I know their names. So nice. When while you're teaching, you're just explaining something. You can talk to someone and say, "Oh, I lost you. Why? What did I
Yeah.
say that you did not
You can
understand?"
often see it in their
Yeah.
eyes. Yeah.
Yes. And there's must be some number because it's like a cutoff over a certain number. It just becomes a blur. It's just a wall of faces, and whether you're teaching to them or to a camera, it doesn't make any difference anymore. I'm slightly exaggerating, but that personal touch is gone. A lot of students also get shy about asking questions when they're in a big group because you have to get over your shyness and say, "Oh, I don't understand this."
Right.
Yeah, I have a friend who was a
That's
math teacher, like classic high school math teacher and middle school math teacher, and he says they all say the same thing. It's like you lose the personalization after like 20 people per maybe. Like
Something like that. Yeah.
at 30, you start after that you start dividing people into groups. Like in your head, you put them in groups, and you say this is group A, B, and C. Like the smart ones, the one that are okay, and the one that are struggling, or something like that. Because you have to try to you can't basically make personalized content for 30 people, right? And
I
obviously when you get an amphitheater, then it's completely like you have to make a lecture.
Yes, it's just a lecture, and you make slides, and you can give small demonstrations. When I teach small groups, I have notes what I want to say, but I don't have slides. I demonstrate everything. I make notes live with them. If it's something that they need to know that's very important, we make the slides together. We decide what we're gonna put on there. We save them on their yeah. That works. You have when you have small groups. You
yeah.
can't do that, and if there's 100 people sitting there, then you're
Yeah.
doing a
No.
talk, right?
How many hours do you have through this semester or whatever in total with your group?
Me personally, it depends on the course, of course.
Uh,
They have about right all the courses they have together, which includes math and algorithm and programming, and then also they have to learn some 2D and 3D because they have to be able to talk to artists. But we teach them about between 80 and 18 and 22 hours per week. Um,
oh, okay.
they are expected for every hour of class they get, they are expected to work more or less an hour at home. For
Right.
some courses it's more, for some courses it's less, but it should average out. I mean, legally we should try to get the students into a 40 hours a week work week. That's what we're aiming for. And we
Right.
have our semesters are 12 weeks, so 12 weeks of teaching, couple of weeks of exams. So two semesters a year. I've also heard that the semesters are longer in the US. There's more weeks.
It depends on the university. Usually we do 2 a year with a summer term possibility, but some universities do 3
Yeah.
trimesters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't yeah, summer term is not, if you have to come back in the summer, it's a retake. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
If you fail your exams, you can come and do a retake in August. But
There's
there's no
various
class.
reasons. At my university, people would do. They had a pretty strong co-op education program, so they encouraged people to get a job with a company that had basically registered with the university for this to all work out. And you would do like 1 semester at the company and then 2 semesters back at the university. So that meant you were doing like every third semester, you were probably hitting a summer term, right? And trying to get those classes that you couldn't get during the regular term because you were at the company,
Yeah,
you were at Microsoft or whatever.
we have schools like that in France, but I think that you alternate once a month or once every 2 months between the company and the school.
Right.
You basically have two options, right? You have the one when you alternate between the company and teaching, and it's sort of teaching on the job. And there's the one who are just like full, more classic, like classic curriculum, like I think like Tom teaches.
Yeah,
Right.
we have an internship at the very end of the program. So at the last semester of their bachelor is just an internship, where they spend 4 months in a company. And
Okay,
we're
that's pretty
trying
cool.
we're trying to solve one of the main problems the starting developer has in the game industry, and I think Mathieu will agree with me. If you apply somewhere, the first question they will ask you is, "What other commercial game have you worked on?" Of, of course, when you're starting out, that's an issue, right?
That was an issue for me.
Yes.
I have my consulting gig, and I tried to apply to some jobs from time to time when I was in between clients and wondering if this was gonna pan out or not. And I got thrashed without a human calling me back on some like senior programmer application because I had the audacity to tick the button. I don't have 3 years of professional AAA games in Unreal or some nonsense.
Yes.
Uh,
So the 4 months they work on a real game and a company opens a lot of doors. A lot of them actually get hired at their internships. So that
Right.
still works well. It's not as good as it used to be. Fortunately for us, the game developers, they know C++ when they get out of here, right? Low latency stuff. And a lot of my best students actually realize I really like programming. I like games too, but it's the programming I enjoy. And when
Mm-hmm.
if they're willing to not just stick to games, they find jobs very easily. There's a lot of job opportunities still for the C++ developers. I think it's
yeah,
everywhere.
if I can give my 2 cents on this, I think there is a real disconnect in the game industry of late, and like I said, I've experienced this firsthand recently, but I saw it around me too. There's basically two types of ways people look at jobs for like if you want a game programming job, basically. Some of them they actually want like an engineer, and at the end of the day, like, oh, do you have X years of experience on engine X, Y, or Z products, A, B, C? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can figure out in an interview. Someone can pick those details up, yes or no. And there's the one who are just they want like a very specialized worker. Like I made a joke on Twitter, like call it like modern Fordism, but it's kind of the idea. Is like I want a guy who's very good at like hitting this nail on the Unreal Engine to make gameplay features, and in no way we think you can make it. I'm like, I've worked 7 years on a custom engine. What are you talking about? Like, I had my last client was Unreal. I had barely picked up Unreal before, and I did not stop me from like on a 3-day consulting say, hey, you can make your frame like X milliseconds faster by doing X, Y, or Z. Like, it's absolute nonsense. But I think this is a big disconnect. I don't know exactly where it stands. Is it just like because there's too much filter between the team leads and the field and your CV? Like it has to go through a bunch of people who have no idea what the job is about, or is it because some companies just have that as a policy that the team will only hire? I've heard that from team leads too, telling me like, no, don't bother applying if you don't have professional experience on Unreal. Some people that I had met, I will not name them, but some people I had met at conferences, I heard they were working on an interesting game, and I say, "Are you looking for programmers?" And they say, "Yes, but only if you only send me a CV if you have worked on Unreal professionally," which I think is completely insane.
Yeah,
That doesn't. I mean,
I agree.
yeah.
I agree. And it's been a fight here inside the school as well because our management we regularly do surveys with the industry, right? Um, and while the teachers are usually saying the same thing, we're not, because these companies are thinking we are doing training for them, but we're not doing training. We're doing education, which has the side effect of usually training them in some useful skills. But it's like you say, somebody who is smart and flexible enough, he'll learn Unreal. That's not a problem, right? And if they're not willing to put in the work, even for interns, sometimes the expectations that companies are unrealistic. They're still students, right? Technically, the internship is part of their education. It's 4 months. Is that their last semester? They should be learning stuff on the job. We also have a pretty bad system in Belgium for internships, which is something I'm really upset about, but I can't help it. But my smartest students don't do internships in Belgium. In Belgium, you are forbidden to pay your interns.
What?
Yes, not only can you choose whether you pay them. That's a couple of countries around us. Not you are required to pay them. No, you are forbidden to pay them.
Oh, in France, you're
And
fully
and and
mandated to pay them. It
yeah,
wasn't the case back in my day, but it has changed over the years, and they kept
which
raising the
which
minimum
makes
salary you have.
100% sense to me. But you can imagine, of course, internally we keep track of this. But some companies have been using interns like cheap labor, right?
Oh,
You have
sure.
somebody who's half trained already.
Yeah,
You
of
you
course.
just throw them in a room together, and they can just produce assets that you need. And you don't care, right? It's better than pure AI slop, and they don't have anybody to train them or help. Yeah, it's a nightmare. But fortunately this is rare. But it's a bad system that in Belgium you are not allowed to pay your interns.
Not allowed. It does sound like a system that's set up to encourage corruption or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
Really.
Sweden has a similar thing where you're not supposed to pay the interns, but that's because the school will pay you there's basically it's a government program. So like, if you are part of the official like internship program through your school in Sweden, as I understand it, because I haven't done it myself, you like the company doesn't need to pay you because the state/the school will pay the student to be there. Basically, someone is footing the bill at the end of the day, right? It's in that
Yeah.
sense. So and then I guess it's redistributed through company taxes. I don't know exactly what the economic model, and we can argue for why whether or not this is the best one, but it at least makes sure that your guys are paid one way or the other, right?
yeah,
And companies will not hire you if I think they can't if you don't have a partnership because obviously you can't be paid. It's kind of insane that Belgium is completely the opposite. Like, why would they do
yeah.
that?
It's terrible. It used to be that my best students went to the UK. Because in UK there's a lot of work for developers in game community. There's a lot of subcontracting, right? There's a lot of companies there, like where Guy worked, and so my best students would go to UK. They were also well paid there. The governments, the companies took good care of them, put them up in a little studio and whatnot. And then Brexit happened.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's getting fixed now slowly because the Brits are already back into the Erasmus program.
Oh, yeah,
So
because they were out for a while, and I
yeah,
think
they
they came
were
back.
out of everything, but they're already back in the Erasmus program, which allows travel of students. But internships is not.
Okay. Yeah. Can you explain the Erasmus
Yeah,
program
the
for someone
Erasmus
who's not
program is
familiar?
the Erasmus program is a European system that's been invented to promote European cohesion. And basically, it means as a student in a country in Belgium, you can do one semester in another country.
Okay.
You know, you're a Belgian student, and you go for one semester. You go study in Italy, or the Italian will go to Ireland for whatever, right? All the European countries, and the Brits were also members of this because they were in the EU, but then they left. They're still out of the EU, but they're back into the Erasmus program. So that's already one step ahead. Now if they get the internships back, that will be fine. But of course, that's a very European problem.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Jason is gonna have to
Cut away all the
eventually
useless
catch up with
parts
all
of this
that stuff.
conversation.
This is becoming more and more of a European podcast. Yeah, I guess your students who speak French can just cross the border. Because I just looked up the map. You're actually very close,
You're extremely close to the border.
but I think yeah. Although I don't know how much people in Lille speak any Dutch, if at all. So I think
None.
French will probably be much easier.
We've had some students going to France. Typically, they are French students who study here. About
Hmm.
uh, about 1/3 of our students is from abroad. And if they speak French, they manage to find it. We've had a few students who found a job in France only speaking English. There are some companies that do it, but they are rare. It was a company in Paris,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
they were very happy. They were like, "Oh, officially, we've always said we're English speaking inside the company, but we never really did it.
Yep.
But now we have this intern who doesn't speak French, So now we have to. And it was a tiny company, right? I don't know, they had 10 or 12 people, and they were super happy with how it went. And the student still works there, I think. Oh, well, he was hired too, and it's somewhere in Paris. Language is a barrier. Working in France, you better learn French.
Yeah,
But
if you
there's a
want
lot
to
of
work in English, you should from the Netherlands. From Belgium. Don't move west. Move east or north, right? If you want to work for an English-speaking country.
most of the countries.
English-speaking company. That is what I mean
Most
to say.
most of the countries have English as a, even in Spain or Poland or whatnot. But
Yeah.
France is very
I know,
strong
it's
with
just
French.
French.
But
I've every company that I am aware of personally that is based in the Netherlands has English as the company's official language, but they also have a lot of not Dutch speakers moving to the Netherlands.
yeah, it's
So
very
it's
similar
a
in Sweden.
necessity as well. Yeah.
They also have
And
QWERTY
Sweden,
keyboards in the Netherlands. Actually in Belgium, we were initially a French country, purely a French-speaking country. In Belgium, we also have by default AZERTY, right? Instead
Oh,
of
I didn't know
QWERTY,
that.
it's yeah. But we recommend our students. Yes, it's terrible. But we recommend our students when they start their studies, buy a QWERTY laptop. If you're buying a new one,
So,
if you work in
so
any context worldwide, it will be QWERTY.
quick anecdote. A while back, I had like one of those fancy keyboard where you can have like none of the keys on it because I thought it was funny because I never
Oh,
look at
yeah.
the keys, right?
The blank ones, yes.
Yes, and of course my mapping was AZERTY, and every time someone comes to my house, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play something on the internet, well, quick, like YouTube or Spotify, and they try to tap and they go, what the fuck is going on? Because it's an AZERTY mapping, and they can't even look up the key. I don't know, it amuses me a lot every time, but maybe I'm very easily amused by the French specificities when my friends and others have to struggle with that.
So we are getting on and towards an hour here, so we should
Oh,
probably, start, wrapping up the conversation. Maybe I kind of want to bring it back just a little bit to C++ specifically, and I'm
yes.
curious, as an educator teaching game programming in C++, are there features of the language that you wish would either just go away or things that you really want added or anything like that that you think would make your job easier?
But it depends on how if I could change the language. There's two levels to that question. Do I have a magic wand, and can I go some legacy stuff, make it go away, that my students won't need it anymore? Then yes, right? Everybody knows about the wrong defaults. Stuff should be const by
Yeah,
default. Class should be final
yeah,
by default. That will all be convenient, but that's stuff that can't change. But I'm so looking forward that when every compiler really supports import stood well. This is such a convenience. Same with this is also a controversial opinion. I've never liked Tutsi out, and I'm so happy we have just a print function now. What do you write as a first program? Everybody writes "Hello World."
yeah,
And then you have to explain already this weird operator, right? You already have to explain a main function. Yeah, and this is also kind of like a function call, but it's not really. It's an operator overload. That makes that first conversation very complicated, more complicated than it should be. And then
yeah.
realistically, but I don't think that's gonna happen. But if I could make a wish, I wish I wish C++ had a standard library to make some kind of graphical user interface. That would,
Oh, that ship has sailed, I think.
yeah,
That
I
was,
know, I know, but during some part of my career, I taught Java. Yes, I know. But I mean, you have to make
it's
ends
fine.
meet,
It's fine.
and and uh, and and as much as shitty as it is, but it's nice to have something like what's it called, Swing, right? If you
Yeah,
can just make a window and throw some button on it on a canvas, and you can draw something on it, and it really helps students who are very motivated. Oh, I have a button, I can make the button do something, I can draw something. It goes really fast. My son is 13. He's not very excited about Hello World. if I show him something on the console, he calls that, "Oh wow, the computer's in hacker mode," right? It's very hard if you do C++ as a first language, and your first example is to make an application that when they double click it does nothing, right? It does something, yeah, it does something. But if you do it from the GUI and they open Explorer and they click the program, it just opens a window and closes immediately, right?
Yeah,
It,
it's
that
it's
program
Right.
has a that's very
it's
far away from I want to make a program. Oh, but you can open a command line. Oh, great! Now I have to explain another thing that they don't know yet. So I
that's
wish,
That's
yeah,
that's almost a thing I would like to have a panel on, because I'm starting to keep a record of people who have had strong opinions about this, and it's very interesting because I think you and I were both at CPP North last year, and I guess you saw Mike Shah's talk
yes,
about SDL GPU, and his whole point was that I can't teach student anything if there is no graphics; they'll just lose interest. And the week
Mm.
after, I met Patrice Roy from the University of Sherbrooke
yeah,
in Montreal, and I asked him, like, you teach games and whatnot at
I have to book with
yes.
him.
Oh, another sponsor of the podcast. We should really start working on sponsorships. Anyway, and I asked him the same question, and he said, no, that's absolutely not an issue. Like, people are absolutely fine with, like, my orc murdering simulator, like, in text. It's absolutely okay. So it's really interesting because I keep hearing completely diverging opinion on what makes, like, stuff enticing enough for students.
This was what would you wish to have?
Uh-huh.
So
No,
I
I'm just
actually
curious.
heard a good argument by Daisy Holman. Daisy
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Holman. It was a fireside chat. It wasn't last year, but 2 years ago at CppCon, where she argued, "Oh, but it's not the fact that we don't have a GUI library or nothing. There are enough. We need Python has only half has a standard GUI library, but they have an easy way of adding. You just type
Oh no, it's
pip
gonna say
and
package
whatever.
manager. Yeah,
Yeah, you have a convenient pack. I'll settle for a good package manager that's standardized, right? That I can just type anything. It's like when
yeah,
people tell me when you say, "Oh, but when they start out, Visual Studio is a very complicated program." Oh, but it's easy with CMake. And again, my students are just starting; they don't know how to program, and the solution the solution to make their difficult C++ go away is to teach them yet another programming language before they know a first one. As
yes,
much as I love as much as I love CMake, right? But it's an advanced solution. It's not beginner friendly. I feel right. That's
yeah.
my experience when teaching about it.
I tried to
Um,
make a wrapper a couple years back in Python. That would just basically wrap up like CMake plus Conan. I think I was using Conan at the time. If I were to do it today, I would probably try to do VC package instead. And it would basically try to make everything go away behind the scenes if you don't, so you don't have to think about it until you were happy with it. And then you could click, like, you could type like opt out, and it would just dump you the generated CMake file and VC package import file, and then you could just continue maintaining that in the future. But it never, I didn't get any interest in that, so it never went anywhere, because I think people who really care about package management, they know what they're doing, and the other ones are just like, I don't know what that is. Maybe I
but
should revise it
we're
again.
falling into the engineer trap, right? Right? It's oh, there's like 6 different ways to do something. This is shitty. I'll make a standard way, and then you make something great. Now there are 7 ways to do something.
Yeah, that's true, but what's the alternative, right? You're not gonna
And
fix CMake.
I have no answer. I'm again. Jason asked, "What would you wish?"
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I
That's fair.
did,
That's fair.
yes.
You ask for you got the magic lamp. It's your wish, and you have to do what you want. Uh, to kind of get us toward a conclusion slowly, Jason, I was curious to hear about your thoughts, because we talked about education a lot, and you do a lot of training, and I wonder if
Do.
you like heard some echo there, or if it's a completely different experience when you're teaching people, like, in a professional setting and whatnot.
It's a pretty different experience because those people already have an environment that they need to make sure they're getting up to speed on or whatever. And I'm not there to teach them how to use their build tools or their GUI framework or whatever, right? I'm there to help them, fill in the details in their C++ knowledge.
And they don't use
And
ChatGPT to find the answer and then cheat at the test.
sometimes they do, yes. And but
It's
I'm
fine
also
as long as
there.
they understand what they do.
Yeah. Sometimes my job surprises me in that my job is to team A has all the CI with all the automated test and all the things working, and then team B for some reason doesn't have automated test, or team A has whatever commercial tools that they want to use, and the person on team B is like, will tell me like during lunch, like, oh yeah, I can't get a license for that. There's no way to get a license for that in the company. And so I will sometimes in the middle of a corporate workshop make a comment about this because I've heard these things enough, right? I'll be like, so everyone has access to the CI server, right? And someone from team B will be like, well, actually we don't. And I'll be like, you need to talk to Bob over here by the end of this class and make sure you have access to the CI. Oh, apparently so-and-so in accounting is able to get you the license to the tools that you need, right? Like, anyhow, sometimes that's my job.
And that's why every trainer doubles as a consultant.
Yes, I'm also a consultant, and there's been times where someone will say, we have this problem, we just don't have a solution for it, and I'll be like, where's the whiteboard, right? and then people are taking pictures, and I'm like, yeah, I've seen similar issues and similar projects in the past, whatever. But no, I don't. If I have someone who doesn't know C++ at all in my class, they are going to be the minority. They're going to be the person who's moving from Python to C++ to help fill in the gap and whatever, blah, 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 part of this project, right? And so then my job becomes translator.
Right.
Like, okay, this is similar to a destructuring with a generator in Python, whatever, right? Like, you know this, you just have to translate these things in your head now. Anyhow.
I also wonder if the motivation is the same, like the mindset compared from like someone who's getting a professional training through their company versus like someone who is pretty young and just getting into academia or getting into like uni, and they may or may not know what they want to do, or they may or not want to understand the point of why am I here besides getting a diploma.
I think our job as teachers in purely education is often not as much the passing of information, but making them enthusiastic about something, right? And seeing visible results makes people enthusiastic. Graphics programming, which is a course they have in the third semester, right, where they write their own ray tracer and rasterizer, and they make shiny balls, because that's what you always start with. But the joy you see of people managing to do that and creating something visual, the first time they make a little game and something moves and you press the button, so you can make a lot of enthusiasm for it. There are some people who get enthusiastic about Hello World because they're really motivated, but that's not a big group. Although those tend to be my very best students, right? They're like, wow, I've compiled my first program. Look how awesome this is, right? And there's a group of course, but with 18 years old, that's not all of them.
No, that I understand that you can't write your entire course for the couple nerds in the group that are going to be printing like CPU manuals in the next semester, as we were mentioning before. Because I've done that too, and I kind of like I've noticed some thing. Do you know that? I don't know if they still do it, but if you just email Intel or use their website, they will just ship it for free. I don't know if they still do that.
Really?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the first time I had my, I think I wanted to joke about it, to mention that earlier. The first time I used like a company internship printer to print like the Intel like IA32 manual, x86 basically. And then a friend was like, no, you can just go on Intel website and request them, and they will FedEx it to your door. And back in the day, getting a print book like FedEx to your door in 2 days in France was the most insane experience I ever had, and it was free. I just went on Intel website and I'm like, yeah, I kind of like this CPU thing. Can you send me free printed books by my door? I don't know if they still do it. I heard about it somewhere. Someone mentioned it in a talk, I think, but my memory eludes me.
And our next podcast will be covering the news about how Intel has discontinued that service.
because too many people.
Yeah, and I guess there's many more books now because that's probably like the instruction set now is probably 3 books instead of 1 or 2.
Yeah,
Okay, we should wrap this up if there's any final comments from anyone.
Maybe a last one, since we talk about hardware, and something I'm really enthusiastic about. I've given 2 lightning talks about it, and one micro talk at GDC. To help my students, I had a discussion with Guy Davidson. Or we the old timers had it good, right? We had shitty computers, so we needed to understand more to do stuff.
Mm.
And he came back with the answer that I actually wanted to. He's like, "But it's easy. Just take away their shiny new computers." And so I have a course. It's an elective. It's not for everyone. In the 3rd semester, where they have to make a game for the NES in 6502 assembly, and I have limited statistical data. The manuals are all available. We have better manuals now than the developers had back in the day from Nintendo. We have Visual Studio Code. Will integrate beautifully with your. You can debug your assembly. It's all magnificent. You can buy a card so you can test on real hardware, because they have to make it run on real hardware. And I have some data, of course. Please, mathematicians, don't put angry comments on YouTube. Yes, it's not fully statistically relevant. But the students who tend to pick this do better in the Programming 4 course. Of course, there's a pre-selection effect, right?
Self-selection.
But I think there's something to be said about understanding an entire system. No abstraction layers. These modern consoles and computers, everybody who tells you I understand them completely is a liar. Nobody understands Windows completely and the drivers completely, and then there's these Intel processors who are tremendously complicated. But the 6502 with its measly 56 commands, the PPU, and the NES, the students are very enthusiastic. It's a real console, and they still know some of the games on it. The first lesson, I actually make them play it a lot. And they have to make a small report. What's your favorite game? And it cannot be Mario, Mega Man, or Zelda. So and then they try some games, and they realize this is a real console. And then some of the games they make are amazing. The limited resources also fosters creativity. I had a team this year that made an animated background, a waterfall, during the whole game. You can't do animated backgrounds on the NES unless you do really weird stuff. And it's called the Monster of Wellstown. And so the player has to escape, and the water is coming up, and they have this wavy effect on everything they draw, for which they have to count cycles and do crazy stuff with interrupts. They looked as just a team of 4 people in 12 weeks, 4 hours a week. They managed to do that. They're going to release it on Steam. They're working on a Kickstarter now for it. The levels are procedurally generated. I mean, there's a lot to be said for these old computers and how understandable they were, right? You could understand the whole thing. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. And alumni will tell me now, that's that part I would never understand without the retro console. I now I really understand what a stack is and what a function call is, and because they had to do it. And they will always complain about coding standards, but then you discover when they have to write assembly, suddenly they have this whole document that they put together themselves, that they put it with no, you can't name it like that. That's we're gonna have, and this zone in static memory is for that, and that's how we're gonna do it. And then they hack into Visual Studio Code within a plugin to be able to do unit tests because they have too much regression problems. So yeah, it's very educational, and I'm very enthusiastic about it.
Can they use C++ like Jason did for Commodore, or they're forced to use?
No, they're forced to use assembler.
Okay.
I thought about it, but they'd be messing around too long to get everything, and also that there's part of it is the understanding what the assembly is and what the C++ compiler does to protect them, because the students can complain a lot, and they will be like, C++, it's so much harder than Python. Look, and it's complaining the compiler again about my variable types, and I cannot assign this to this, and it doesn't understand what I mean. And I'm like, now you have assembly, you can assign anything to anything. Anything is everything. It's a pointer, it's a number, it's a character, it's a sprite, it's sprite data, it's texture, it's sound, it's whatever you want it to be, and the assembler will not stop you. Well, they quickly change their opinion about how evil the C++ compiler is.
You know what?
That's amazing.
given that Jason is going to force me to end this podcast very soon,
We do need to wrap it up. Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say, Tom, I think this would be a great talk. I think maybe not every conference, but like AQ, for example, would be a great venue for that, because it's the kind of like C++/C adjacent, a bit cozy kind of topic that I would get a lot of people interested. Like, I think you would get a full room.
Which conference is that?
I think IQ or IQ on C would probably be a very good pick.
I can't make it to.
It's too late now. It's too late now. But
can't
you know,
make it
like, I think there are conferences we would really like a talk like this that is not like primarily C++, but kind of is in some roundabout way, you know, remind people that that thinking that C is actually closer to the machine is a lie on modern machines, and the whole idea of like having a whole execution model in your head and things like that. I think you have something there.
I have a short talk on GDC. I can send the link to Jason after this thing. It's a 12-minute talk.
I actually found a link to that game that I can also add to the show notes for this.
Yeah, but I think that could definitely be an hour. Just, you know, as a suggestion.
Absolutely.
Anyway, since we need to wrap up, there is no sponsors except the one we mentioned inadvertently during the whole talk. There's no Patreon, but you can still reach out to us because we're always looking for more interviewees, both. We have a small backlog. We would rather like have a bigger backlog. You can also tell your friends that you can find us on Spotify or on YouTube, or maybe we're on another platform. I'm not 100%. Get this wherever you get your podcasts. I don't know if we have to like it, favorite, share it, or how that whole social thing works. It was great.
I had prepared notes and I've touched on nothing.
Yeah, that's all. We should go like an extended version. Once we get a Patreon, maybe we'll get like an extended version for the Patreons with the second half of the interviews.
I shouldn't have been so nervous. This was for any potential speakers. I highly recommend it. It was a lot of fun. You're both wonderful to talk to.
All right. Well, dear listeners, see you next month.